I will say that entrepreneurship is also glorified. It's really not all that it seems to go all in. And so if you have a good job, like don't quit right away. There are many things to consider, as you know, right, before you jump into full-time entrepreneurship. I realized there was no place where I could go to not just work on my professional development in isolation, and not just make friends for a social setting in isolation, but find those peer groups that could almost do both.
Mai, who are you? Where are you from? And what is your current mission?
Well, thank you firstly for having me. I am a German-born Vietnamese, but not your typical German-born Vietnamese, because I really see myself as someone who's consistently had to be in between a lot of cultures at the different stages of my life. So when I was 7, I actually left Germany. I moved to Egypt, out of all places, spent 5 years there, moved to Vietnam for another 5 years, and so have very strong roots there too. But then moved abroad again for university and work, and now I'm between Ho Chi Minh City and Singapore, two places that I think are so rich in both my personal heritage and reconnecting with that, but also Singapore being like a global hub to do big things. And on the professional side, I spent most of my career in big tech. As you know, we were both at Google. We had some overlap there. I mostly spent my big tech career in London first, and then moved to Singapore. And upon moving there, realized that big tech wasn't quite for me anymore. And so joined the startup ecosystem in Southeast Asia. And now I'm building my own startup, bootstrapping it, year 2. So that's me.
Give us the quick overview of your business.
Yeah, so I'm building Podium, which is a connection platform for modern women to find peer groups for navigating career transitions and life transitions. We really focus on women in their late 20s to 40s, at which point so many different changes hit your life, whether you like it or not. You've been maybe working for a decade plus, and you're thinking about building a family, you're thinking about having kids. Even if you're not thinking about having kids, you have a declining egg count. What do you do with your fertility? And so many questions and decisions need to be made. And so we really build space for women to come together in person and find the peer groups to really motivate them, support them, and guide them through being the modern woman that they want. And currently we're based in Singapore. And I really see us in the human connection space, not just in like the women empowerment space. And we try to use a lot of scalable systems and tech to facilitate in-person human connection. And soon, hopefully outside of Singapore as well.
I love the clarity, the conviction, but I guess it hasn't been this much of a straight line until now.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit back. You've
Sure.
been to many places. Can you explain Germany, Egypt, Vietnam? Why did you move so much, so often?
Yeah, so my family was following my father around for his work. And after being born in Germany and spending my initial years there, as a German Vietnamese, he had to move to Egypt for his work. And so that's where I learned English. And I was 7 at that point. So I would say my earliest childhood years were in Germany. And I still feel very familiar with German culture. I still have some understanding of it, and I still understand the language, but I'm definitely not German because, yeah, age 7, I started speaking more in English. And then age 12, moved to Vietnam, but I went to international school. So I think my connection and relationship to my Vietnamese identity has always been very interesting. I've always felt like I wasn't Vietnamese enough, but then yet I am Vietnamese because my mom made sure that we spoke it at home. She made us take lessons in the summer, which I hated her for, but I'm so proud of it now. I think for a Viet Kieu, I speak pretty good Vietnamese. So yeah, all those places really shaped who I was in my early years, but also made me feel like I didn't fit in anywhere. And so that was interesting.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I think it kind of slowly led into what you're doing today as well, right?
Exactly.
Tell us about your Google time a little bit in London and then the move to Asia.
Yeah, so I think wanting to work for a place like Google probably really came from wanting to impress my family and my dad, who was in corporates a lot. And of course, when I first joined Samsung, when I started my career in 2014, and then Google in 2017, I think big tech was really like in its glory days. I mean, it's still a very good place now, but back then, you had all the perks that you wanted, and I was going on like so many amazing like personal development, leadership development trips and stuff with Google that I know that the time in corporate set me up very well for whatever else I'm doing now. But yeah, wanting that big name on my CV and honestly going to first a Korean company where the culture was very hierarchical, very Korean, wanting that American big tech culture experience, Google was the perfect place for the first few years. And I was always on the business side though, in marketing, partnerships, doing work that on paper I thought was very meaningful. And yes, it was very meaningful. But I think after 5 years at Google, I realized some of the systems and bureaucracy and politics, and those were some of the things that I felt weren't as aligned with how I wanted to progress in my career. And that's why I ended up doing more of an entrepreneurship route. But yeah, big tech, as you know, is an awesome place to work, especially in the early stages of your career.
I think it's a very similar story to mine actually, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm just very curious. When did you think it started to come up from within, where you thought, okay, there's more? And
Yeah.
what was the turning point where you decided, okay, this is going to be it, I will be pursuing something else?
So for me, it really started during COVID. And I think for many of us, COVID was a time where, you know, when you're stuck at home, you have many thoughts in your head and you're left alone with them, you're really questioning what you want out of your life. And Google, yes, was an exceptional big company to work for. But I also, when the perks and some of the like travels and the food were stripped away, I realized at the end of the day, it is a big company, which, you know, nothing wrong with working at a big company, but it comes with certain things that you need to deal with, such as if I wanted to get things done, there's so many hoops to jump around, right? And so many approvals. And I felt like whatever I wanted to do just took so much time. So that was one reason why I had the push to leave. The other thing was there was always a pull, and maybe this is the Vietnamese in me, but I always was like, you know, coming back to Vietnam, seeing my friends who I went to school with here as a teen start their own businesses, do their own things, hustle, and I felt like I wanted to give that a try too. And so it was both a push and a pull. So the push of feeling like who I was and the way I wanted to work wasn't aligned with corporate world anymore, and the pull of wanting to try and do something and create something of my own that maybe solve one of my problems that others could benefit from as well. And perhaps there was a little rebellion point as well, where my dad was like corporate man and he did a lot of things and he started a lot of things, but always in like a corporate context. And I was like, maybe I want to do something a bit different. So yeah, I think those were some of the factors.
For someone who is maybe now in corporate,
Yeah.
kind of in between, kind of dreaming of this entrepreneurial life, but indecisive, what would you advise them, and how did you make the decision for you?
So first of all, I will say that entrepreneurship is also glorified. It's really not all that it seems to go all in. And so if you have a good job, like don't quit right away. There are many things to consider, as you know, right, before you jump into full-time entrepreneurship. But I think some of the things are just looking at your career trajectory and looking at your bosses, like, do you want to be them? And if not, maybe in some time you should think about other paths for you. And for me as well, I just felt like my learning curve especially at Google in the first few years was really, really steep, and that was great. But at some point it started to plateau. And I think in a lot of the big companies these days, it's a lot flatter than it used to be. And so it can be harder for you to continue to get that speed of learning and speed of just exposing yourself to really different things if you are staying, you know, in that role, in that environment. And so yeah, I think ask yourself, are you learning the things you want to learn? Are you headed in the direction that you want to with your career, and looking 5 years ahead, do you want to be there? If not, I mean, don't quit right now unless you know it's really that bad, but just think about the steps you can take to get closer to entrepreneurship, like starting a side thing or exposing yourself to more entrepreneurs and hearing how they did it. Yeah.
Are there things that you learned from your time at Google that you now can use and are beneficial?
Absolutely. So what I think Google helped me really excel at was stakeholder management.
Okay.
As you know, at Google, whenever you work in any project, there's so many different teams you have to involve, right? And navigating, building relationships with all of your different stakeholders who maybe want slightly different things, and managing their expectations and managing your relationship with them, internal and external partners. I think that was like really key to how I think about building my business as well. So that's one. The other thing is learning what systems and structures look like at scale. I think if I was a fresh grad and I had jumped straight into entrepreneurship, then you might know what the next 2 steps are, but you won't be able to imagine what it's going to be like when whatever you do takes off to a much bigger scale. Yeah. And so I think seeing it at that scale and learning the rigor, the processes, the systems, and what it could look like, even though at the end of the day I felt limited by them, it's amazing to see, right? That helps so much in you, even at the early stages, being able to imagine how you could eventually get to that. Not the Google scale, because that's very, very big, but a bigger scale. So I think those are 2 of the main things that I really treasure from my time at Google. And managing your brand, because as with being at any big company, you know, there is a lot of politics, there is a lot of dynamics at play, and you just doing your work is not enough. You need to really like build your personal brand, because there's so many people. And that obviously helps if you're doing your own thing, or even if you're even if you're working at a startup. So those are some of the things.
That's so true. I heard from someone, a colleague at Google, he said, it's important what you do, but it's also important what people think you do.
Yes, yes.
So it's always that game, whereas in a startup, it's much more direct. It's really important what you do and outcome.
Yeah.
Maybe inverse question on that. What are things that you had to unlearn from Google now running your own thing?
Things I had to unlearn. The first thing that comes to mind is interesting, because at Google, they tell you that you're operating in this context, but I now realize it's not quite. So one of the things, if you remember from your time at Google, is they really want you to thrive in ambiguity. And now that I'm building my own thing, my definition of ambiguity is so different to what it was when I was at Google. Because when things are ambiguous at Google, you still have money to run research, you still have teams to support you and all of this. Whereas now, thriving in ambiguity, I know, means honestly just like trusting your gut sometimes. And leaning into that is something I really had to learn, because I think being in a big corporate, like, it's not enough just for you to use your gut and say you want to do something. You need to like make a slide deck of like all the different data points and things to validate why you think you want to go in a certain direction, right? And I think carving your own path requires a little bit of conviction on the trust that you have in your own instinct. And that actually does come with a lot of data, because it comes with your lived experience. Just maybe you don't have it on a spreadsheet or a Google slide, right? Yeah. So that's one of the things I had to kind of learn and unlearn, always having a million data points to back what I wanted to do. Because if that was the case, I would be nowhere with my startup.
I call this actionable information.
Yes.
You sometimes just need, 75, 80%.
Yeah.
It's good enough that the chance that this decision is good enough, and you have to move, because if you in a startup overthink, overanalyze, analysis paralysis, then you don't get anywhere, right? Actually, totally. Pace really matters. Walk us through the ideation of Podium. When did it start while you were at Google, and when did you feel this is really needed?
Yeah, so while I was at Google, I knew I wanted to do something of my own for women in Southeast Asia, but I didn't know it was Podium. At the time, I thought maybe it would be something in the women's health space or like hormonal health. Yep. But it wasn't until I think I left Google and joined a startup for 12 months. They were a seed stage startup in a really like proper 0 to 1 phase. And I saw them find product market fit. And I think that built more conviction on me wanting to go on that journey. But it really started because I had left corporate. As a woman in my 30s, changing my career and realizing that my friends were all still in corporate. Yep. So where are the people that I could look towards to really motivate me and also just walk alongside me for paths like entrepreneurship? And not only that, but at that point in my life, I was getting married and entering a new life stage. And I realized as a woman and a man, of course, we all go through so many different things in our lives, and maybe our existing professional professional networks or social circles are not as relevant for some of those things. And so I myself was seeking that new community. And that's how Podium was born, because I realized there was no place where I could go to not just work on my professional development in isolation and not just make friends for a social setting in isolation, but find those peer groups that could almost do both, depending on the day. They could understand me at an entrepreneurial level, but also at a life stage level as well. And so that's also how, when I met my co-founder through the network of the startup that I worked at, we decided to just try and start some events and get some women together to talk about these topics that were really front of mind for us, but we didn't have space to navigate with our existing circles. And that's eventually how Podium was born.
What was the hardest part about going from idea and 0 to what it is now, to 1?
The hardest part, I mean, there's so many hard parts, but one of the hardest parts was managing the expectations of my family. And maybe this goes back to, I think, being in a traditional Vietnamese family. Even though my parents spend a lot of time abroad, of course you want to make your parents proud, and you're obligated to repay them in some way for all the things they've invested in your education, right? And it did feel a little bit scary to give up big names and, you know, a lot of money to try and build something that who knows if it's gonna work or not, right? So that was one hard thing on a personal level.
How did they react?
So better than I thought, which maybe is another thing. Even though our parents don't talk about some of these things to us, if we open the conversation, sometimes we can be surprised at how supportive they are of us at this stage in our life. So I managed to tackle it eventually, but even that internal fear before talking to them, before telling them, I think that I did spend some energy on. So that was hard, I'll be honest. And the second thing I would say was building the community to shortcut some of the learnings, because like I said, all my friends for a long time were like Googlers. They were corporate people, nothing wrong with that. I still love them, I still see them to this day. But I had to rebuild that community for myself. And it did help that my business also helped me rebuild that community for myself, but it took some time. Because I think people tend to stick to groups that, you know, they just come across through work, or you just hang out with people who are like you a lot of the time. And so I had to really go out there and like cold outreach, do DMs on LinkedIn like you, to find people who could guide me and support me, and I could support them in return. To build something of my own. Those are two things that come to mind. How was it for you?
Similar.
Yeah.
I think there's similar 2 points, but probably on a lower scale, because I manage my parents quite well. And I don't fill them in on everything. I give them very selective insight into my life in a very positive and selective way. So they don't get to see a lot of the stuff that I go through, actually, and I don't share with them too much about the things that are maybe more downwards. So they always think my life is sunshine and shiny, and I'm always in control of my life. And so I actually revealed this quite late, when I was a few months into the journey. It was also the time when I got married as well. And so I brought in my family a very trustworthy, competent wife who is Vietnamese, which my parents loved, loved, and she is also very good in being very polite and handling kind of the, you know, how to manage Vietnamese parents. And so the level of trust at the baseline was very high. And so I feel now, also in my 30s, I can do almost whatever I want. But it was a bit of a journey. It took the Google station as well, me being in Singapore versus now in Vietnam. To build that trust. I think if I would have gone from Germany straight to Vietnam entrepreneurship, they would have been very anti. But I had the Singapore Google, and now I did the move, and it felt, you know, very deliberate from my end at least. And so now they're very trusting, and I do fill them in now on how it's growing and the traction. So I would say I'm good in managing that.
That's good.
But I do hear from a lot of other Vietnamese similar issues with, you know, pursuing your dreams, pursuing your entrepreneurial dreams. And their parents, of course, then will object to that, right? You know? So
we got to manage it.
Got to manage it,
But actually, you raised a good point. I think I also brought it up at a time when I was getting married, and so that helped a lot.
That part of life, at least.
I think if I wasn't getting married, especially as a daughter, my parents would have been freaking out. But because they knew I would have a plan B to support me financially or whatever it is, and that at least one area of my life was sorted, I think that helped a lot. So it's a good point you raise as well of, yeah, that does matter actually. And you managed it very well. You timed it in that way. I just like did it, and it luckily was also at a time when both things worked. But
how do they feel about this now?
Entrepreneurship, or they're very proud, I think. But between us, I don't think as proud as when I worked at Google, because they don't really understand what my business does, because it's so new, right? Like the human connection space, the community space, this is like an NGO, right? You do it for fun.
Even not our parents don't get it, right?
Exactly,
like
true.
Normal people, our generation don't really understand the business behind it.
Yeah.
I guess good time to quickly talk through Podium. What is it, and how do you run it?
Yeah, so we call ourselves a platform, but we do run a membership where you pay quarterly or annually to access in-person experiences. And usually those are very intimate. So we realize that with all of this social media and everything these days, actually what a lot of us in big cities who are working and very busy and very ambitious are lacking are opportunities to connect at an intimate level with other people who are our peers, right? And so our events are very small, usually like 7 women around a table.
Nice.
We discuss a topic like money mindset, which can be tackled both from a professional or a personal angle, or we tackle topics like career change in the age of AI, or parenthood and career, how do you navigate motherhood? So topics that really demand a lot of our time, energy, and space, but we don't always get to make it in our day-to-day life. And bringing those topics to your friends, maybe sometimes they're not in the mood, you're just like hanging out, having drinks, and you can't bring your full self to those topics if you only discuss them in a professional context, say. And so we really create space for that. So that's one part of it. And we also host retreats, actually, for women currently living in Singapore to get away and do some personal development, really recharge their batteries and connect with each other. And we've hosted a few retreats before, and people come back still wanting to see each other, every month. And I'm just amazed because a lot of these women are very different. And I think that's key, building this peer group that's very different, but also relevant for you. So that's what we do.
It's wonderful. How do you measure success at Podium? Community is always a bit the human side and more emotional side as well. How do you measure it?
Yeah, so we take a lot of feedback, and I know we have a lot of impact. And that impact is initially how I measured success. Are we shifting someone's perspective on a fundamental topic in their life? Are we allowing them to make progress on something in their life? By offering them a chance to connect with other peers. But also just emotionally, like I know some of these women really don't make enough time for themselves, and being a space where you can come and like take your mask off, right? Like because we're all performing at work and in life, and sometimes it gets exhausting, where it can be real with some of the things we're dealing with, and also celebrate the wins with people who are not jealous, don't have any agenda with us. I know that it's a valuable space for women to keep finding motivation and inspiration to be the woman that they want. And I think men should have this space too, by the way. I don't think it's just women. And we should have mixed gender spaces. I think OV is a brilliant example of that. But we also need single gender spaces because some of the things we deal with are so particular to our gender, like your egg count declining, and thinking about, you're also thinking about parenthood, but in a different lens. Yeah,
I actually naturally gravitate to talking to men just because it's more relatable, just because we're from the same gender, right?
Yeah.
Back to that question with measuring, I think that's something I think about as well a lot, just because I'm running a community as well.
Yeah.
It's just very qualitative, man, and it's very hard to measure it quantitatively. We do measure, of course, everything that a business does, monthly revenue, churn, everything. But in the end, it's really quality of connection. And I always try to frame OV to people that also ask, what's the benefit of me joining, as the value of a network is always the network, meaning the quality of the people and the quality of connections and the ways for you to be able to connect with them. And so the end metric is actually quality connections you are able to make through the community that you would have not made anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I try to measure it, and then the outcomes from there are jobs, which is very tangible.
Yeah.
Next step, maybe co-founders, maybe even friendships, some relationships sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's kind of downstream from
Yes.
you being the enabler and you being the matchmaker,
Yeah.
building the most conducive environment and place with very curated people who naturally fit in very well, right? And for us, it's the heritage, cultural Vietnamese part.
Yeah.
For you, it's the women part, right?
Yeah.
And so this is something I feel a lot of people or other entrepreneurs perhaps don't understand so much about the community space, that it's actually more qualitative. And this is, of course, leaning more subjective, in some ways, but there are tangible outcomes as well, right? But I want to say this just so that people actually understand that what we do has a lot of value. It's just measured very differently than a SaaS, right?
Yeah. And you're right, like same as you, we track our retention, we track our monthly active, all of that. But what really matters in the community is sometimes those lagging metrics of like they found a new housemate, they got a new job, like you say.
You focus on women founders. What's a few lessons you've learned from leading and empowering and connecting women especially?
Yeah, so this one I would say is universal for everyone. And it just goes back to that point of having a peer group. I realized that so many of us probably already know what we want to do deep down inside, but we need the courage and we need the support network to do it. And so putting yourself in the right environment where you are having others recommend content, recommend just resources for you is so vital to you being the person you want to be. And that applies for both women and men. But I think for us, we've seen people who say went on a career break, got a new job, started a passion project, all while and after they started coming to our community. And that's because other people gave them that energy. Humans are social creatures. So if we only are in the context, we're in the environments that we're trying to leave, and we don't put ourselves in new or different environments, we won't change and we won't make different choices. And so that is a very big learning so far, that it really is about who you're around.
Is there any surprising or counterintuitive lessons you've learned from building community? Maybe for a fellow community builder.
Yeah, so a lot of people, especially if you want to do this as a business, and firstly, I believe in doing this as a business because it ensures that you deliver consistently. You just deliver things in a way that enables you to remain there sustainably and not be one of those communities that goes up fast and then dies.
100% agree. Yeah.
So I believe in doing it as a business for those reasons. And one of the things I've learned is to actually start by doing the non-scalable things and to test some of those, and then to learn what the principles and the playbooks are, and then try to do it scalably once you have that. But going straight to, I'm only going to do things at scale, like we would have never done intimate in-person events. But now we know they are really what, for us, in the context that we operate, moves the needle on women feeling more connected, more empowered, all of this. And we found ways to scale it by, for example, women in the community are hosts now. I'm not hosting the dinners anymore, even though at the beginning I hosted 65 events last year, and that is so unscalable, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But it had to happen that way.
It's more than one a week. Huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
It was intense. But without doing that, I wouldn't have built the playbook for our host today. And so doing things unscalably is counterintuitive, but maybe that's what enables you to scale.
And on that point, what do you think, what drives you, and what should be the reasons for someone to start a community? It doesn't seem like it's purely money, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, there is a lot of purpose in this. And I think that goes back to who I was as a person, always needing to find belonging and always being in between places. And it's so fulfilling to now be able to use that and turn it into a strength of being able to bridge so many different groups of people. I'm sure it's the same for you. Being a community builder, you shouldn't only build a community of people who are exactly the same. Try to bridge. And so for me, that was one thing that really helped.
For me, I realized when I just was connecting with a lot of people, and I would call myself a natural connector. I'm just super curious about other Viet girls and other overseas Vietnamese out there.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in with not many other Vietnamese, and so whenever I found one, which was not that often, we just instantly connected. Also because I just was trying to build that relationship more deliberately with that person.
Yeah.
And I think OV is just that at scale.
Yeah.
Where we're just this bunch of videos who might have not such a strong link to each other. Maybe a lot of us succeeded in isolation.
Yeah.
We had maybe a handful of friends, but we know there are so many out there, and that's what OV is trying to capture, and I feel it's very natural to me.
Yeah.
And so what I would actually say for community builders, and this is very similar to your drive actually, is to build a community around what matters to you.
Yeah.
And who you are, because community is always very identity based. And I meet actually a lot of people who try to build communities with cool ideas for entrepreneurs and so on, but then the question is are you exited entrepreneur, are you a successful entrepreneur already yourself, right? I think that's very important to actually be your own core member and target member as well, right?
Totally.
And I would say that's actually a very important prerequisite. Like the idea alone is, I think, cannot stand alone. You have to be purpose driven and passionate enough to build a community of your own people as well, right? I think that's so important, and I feel that's what I see is the difference between actually a failing and a community builder that actually persists and perseveres.
And I think when you are your own target audience, which was also my case, you're solving your problem. So you are deeply connected and you understand at another level, and you're able to also make sure that you keep solving for the right things. So yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. Zooming out 10 years, what impact do you hope to have driven or have built with Podium?
I would like us to become a global community and membership, because I think for women who want to live modern lives, it helps to go outside of your own cultural context to see what's possible. And so I would love to build a sustainable business so that this can go on for the next 10 years. And for us to connect thousands, if not more, of women who want to live intentionally, who want to be successful in their career, but also know the value of being very present in their own life. And that's kind of like the vision, I guess. But on a personal level, I also hope to grow into that woman myself. I would love to be a peer amongst my own community members so that we can kind of grow together. It sounds so cheesy when I say it like that, but it's really like, if I look at the next decade, I love that. So when I enter new chapters, like hopefully motherhood soon, things like that, I really want to take the community along with me and also make sure that I provide more value for the members who have that lens.
Has your Vietnamese heritage shaped in how you lead your company and build your company?
Yes, definitely. I think that especially spending a lot more time in Vietnam after being in Europe, where everything is more like structured, or even Singapore, right? I am embracing my real creative problem solving side and my scrappy proactive side, because I think in Vietnam you have to almost like get ahead of things, right, to make things happen. You can't just like wait for the things in the process to come. And so it's helped me with speed, for sure, in building my business and just like doing it, like getting on with the next step. But I think the other thing is, because Vietnamese culture and language is so contextual, I used to be a lot more of just like a direct communicator compared to, I would say, the communication and leadership style here. But I've learned to add a lot more nuance and context and like understand that a lot more now that I'm building as a Vietnamese founder and trying to make that my strength and trying to bring the things that I've been exposed to in my upbringing that come naturally to me to come out more. Because I think sometimes growing up in Europe and stuff, like you kind of fit into the more structure, things are set and you know all of that. And so I really enjoyed coming back to the side of myself as a builder.
This one is for OV. If you could give one message to Vietnamese women worldwide, maybe in your generation or maybe the younger ones, what would it be, going through everything that you went through?
I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but find those peers that really push you forward, and not only push you forward, but are also there for you when you need them, and just build that support system, right? It can also be people who are a few steps ahead, but finding others who are going through a similar thing. I think I sound like a broken record, like I said, but for me, it's been life-changing. And I know that with communities like OV, there's just so many different avenues for us to do that these days. So there's no excuse for you feeling like you can't do something because the people around you aren't doing it. You will find groups of people doing whatever it is you want to do. It's the beauty of, you know, us living a more globalized life. And so just go out there and find those people.
Perfect. Then how can people learn more about Podium, learn more about you, and stay connected with you?
Yeah, well, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and all of the Podium stuff is on there as well. But on a personal level, I'm always up for meeting more people of Vietnamese heritage who want to build something global, and something for Vietnam as well. So yeah, I would say LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Mai.
Cool. Thank you.